Hi everyone, my name is Melissa van Dijk, and in today's video I want to talk about why retinol can cause purging. Now the usual explanation goes like this. Retinol speeds up skin turnover, so clogged pores that were already forming under the skin come to the surface faster. And I understand why we say that, because retinol does change how the skin renews itself. It changes the pace of the skin, how cells shed, and what is happening inside the follicle. But I think that explanation starts too late, because it explains what happens once something is already coming to the surface, but it does not really explain why the skin was in a state where the breakout could form in the first place. And this becomes especially weird when someone did not have acne or regular breakouts before, because not everyone starts retinol because they have acne. A lot of people started for texture, fine lines, anti-aging, or just general skin renewal. Their skin may have been clear or at least stable, and then they start retinol and suddenly they get inflamed bumps, redness, irritation, swelling, or breakouts. So when that happens, I do not think it makes sense to say, oh, there was just hidden acne coming out. Because if the person was not breaking out before, then what exactly was hiding there? And yes, we can take that explanation further and say that because retinol increases shedding, the dead skin cells change, the pores get clogged, and then it becomes a breakout. But that still describes the final stage. It does not explain the starting point. And the starting point is pressure. The skin tissue can already be swollen, tight, and reactive before the breakout appears. So when retinol speeds up the skin and changes how the follicle behaves, that pressure can start releasing through the skin. And the way I understand acne now is that the skin is not always starting from a calm, neutral place. Before breakout appears, the tissue can already be more swollen, more pressurized, and more reactive. So the pore is not sitting in a calm environment. It is sitting inside tissue that is already under pressure. And when tissue is holding on to too much fluid, everything in that area becomes easier to irritate. A small change in a shedding or a small irritation can suddenly become a much bigger reaction. So in my model, a breakout is not just a clogged pore sitting there and waiting to come out. It is the skin reaching a point where the pressure has to go somewhere. The tissue is already holding onto too much fluid. The area is already reactive, and then something comes in that changes how the skin behaves. And with retinol, that change can be pretty strong, because retinol does not just sit on top of the skin and do nothing. It makes the skin renew itself faster, changes how the cells shed, can change the barrier, and can change what is happening inside the follicle. So if the skin tissue is calm and stable, the skin may be able to handle that change much better. But if the tissue is already swollen, tight, and pressurized, then retinol can make everything move faster than the skin is ready for. And that is where purging makes much more sense to me. Not as old breakouts coming out, but as pressure being released through the skin. The pressure was already there, the skin was already reactive, and retinol changed the pace of the system. It basically loosens the brakes. And once those brakes are loosened, the pressure that was being held in the tissue can start showing up as bumps, redness, irritation, swelling, or even breakouts. So retinol may look like the cause, but I do not think retinol creates the whole problem from nothing. I think retinol can be the accelerator that releases pressure that was already sitting in the tissue. And this also explains why two people can use the same retinol and have completely different reactions. One person starts retinol and barely reacts, while another person suddenly becomes inflamed, irritated, swollen, or covered in bumps. Now, of course, the product still matters. The strength, the frequency, and the barrier all play a role. But retinol is still acting on the skin environment that is already there. And if that environment is already swollen and pressurized, the reaction can become much stronger. So when retinol is added on top of that pressure state, the skin starts changing faster than it can comfortably regulate. The pressure that was already sitting in the tissue begins to release, and that is when the breakout appears. This also explains why stronger retinoids are often much harder to tolerate. The stronger the product, the more it pushes the skin before the skin has fully adjusted. So, the adjustment period is not just about getting used to retinol. It may also be the time the skin needs to regulate that pressure again, calm the tissue down, stabilizes the fluid state, and rebuild enough tolerance so the same product becomes easier to handle. And as a side note, I think this is also interesting when we look at skincare. Because with retinol, we are often told to start slowly. Use it once, then wait 2 to 3 days, give the skin time to adjust. And then over the next few weeks, usually around 2 to 4 weeks, the skin may become more used to it and tolerate it more consistently. And I'm not saying retinol and diet are the same thing, but I do think the overlap is very interesting, because that short 2 to 3 day waiting period also overlaps with the kind of a time frame where internal fluid pressure can start shifting. And the broader 2 to 4 week adjustment period also overlaps with the kind of a time frame where the body can be regulating a new baseline. So it becomes hard to identify what is actually going on there. And that is why I think we need to stop looking at skin reactions as if they always come from one isolated trigger. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!